guest. She has more energy than I can ever have. I'm gonna try to keep it up. She's a best-selling author. She's a podcaster. She has three podcasts, not one. She's the founder of the Fit and Faith Media Company. She is her book just came out today. One of her books. She got so many books, and she's just an amazing. She does conferences. She's all over the world, and she's gonna be with us. So join us. We're gonna talk about issues that maybe a lot of ladies love to hear or want to learn more about shame, about life, about so many other things we're gonna discuss in this podcast. Sex, shame, and love is one of her, topics on her book, Always Becoming. Another one called The Secret Struggle of a Woman's Identity. So we're gonna talk to her in a minute. So join us and tell your friends to listen and watch.
Welcome to Laughter for All. It's the podcast with Comedian Nazareth.
Well, hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Laughter for All podcast. I'm Comedian Nazareth. Thank you for joining us. Episode 210. So thank you for being a subscriber, listening, sharing with your friends, and I appreciate you. Let's see what's going on. This Friday night, I'm going to be in Orange County, California. I'm doing an event for singles. So I'm going to be doing comedy and also giving a little message from the Word of God. So if you're single, you can join us. Go to my website and check out where I'm going to be this coming Friday. Also, I want to remind you our Laughter for All big concert at the La Mirada Performing Arts Center on July 20th. We're already half full. It's already half full, and we're 2 months away as of yesterday, 2 months away. So if you want to come in and you want free tickets, you can go to laughterforall.org, and you will be able to, get your free tickets. This is our Laughter for All ministry where we do free events for people. Mostly, we want people who can't afford to go to a concert or a comedy club or just they want to hear clean comedy and all that, and also they want to be able to invite their friends to hear the good news of Jesus after 2 hours of laughter. I promise you, the first couple hours just laughter, and then we'll share about the Lord, and then give them an opportunity to turn their hearts to Christ. So we already have 600, 700 tickets taken. So there's another. I think we have another 600 tickets left. So please, if you want to come, just go to laughterforall.org, click on the events, and get your free tickets. It's free. Now you want to pay for them, you can. You want a VIP, you can, but it's free. You want to donate to the event, to the ministry, you can. You want to sponsor, you can. You want to volunteer, you can. We're looking for some pastors to be follow-up counselors. So thank you so much for that. On a different note, on the other part of the world, I know some of you are still asking about my family stuck in the Gaza. What happened? We raised the money to get him out through Egypt. Well, the Rafah border is gone right now. There's nobody coming in or out. People are, they were asked by the Israelis to evacuate north, and then the ones in the north to evacuate south. So there's no way anybody can get out of Gaza right now. So they're still stuck at the church in the Gaza city, and keep them in prayer. We don't know what's going to happen. Whatever money you gave, it's still there. It can go back to you anytime if you want it back. But right now we don't know what to do about that. They can't get out, go anywhere. So that's the update. I wish I have better news, but I've been talking to them, and then nothing they can do. So love you guys, and thank you for supporting that. Another note. Let's see where I'm gonna be. Oh yes, in June 7th, I'm gonna be at Night Vision. I think Matthew West and Kane and other people will be joining me. I'll be the main speaker that night for Friday. We have about 10,000 people, or maybe 20 this year, coming to the Night Vision Festival in Grand Junction, Colorado. I'll be there on Friday night, and I think Zach Williams going to be there Saturday, and other different artists. So many artists going to be there that night. On Saturday, I'm going to be in Twin Falls, Idaho, at the Nazarene Centennial. 100 years of the big church there in Twin Falls. I'll be doing the comedy for them. And then on Sunday morning, I'll be in Pocatello, Idaho, doing the I don't know, eating potatoes. I don't know what I'm going to be. Oh, yeah, I'll be doing the morning services for First Baptist of Pocatello, and from there, uh, go to my website. In fact, I'm excited. I'm excited. My guest, ladies and gentlemen, this she's just like full of energy. You know what? I think Elon Musk to use some of her electricity to power the cars that they have, because she has so much energy, she has so much talent, and she's using it. So her name is Tamra Andress. She's a prominent figure in the realm of spiritual entrepreneurship and personal development. That means if you're an entrepreneur, using your career to be able to she will teach you how to use that to honor the Lord and the kingdom. She's an international speaker, best-selling author, podcast host, and founder of the FIT in Faith Media Company and the FIT Press Publishing House. And she does conferences all over the country to teach people how to write books and how to publish their books. She's work primarily focused on integrating faith and business. Also, she's been her articles on let's see, I want to be okay, on Forbes magazine, USA Today. She was on the in Times Square. They had her book on the big screen, and she's been all over the world. So please welcome my friend Tamra Andress. Hi, Tamra.
Hi.
Oh my Lord, thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm so excited to be here. And that was amazing. I'm like, wow, people need their own private jet to follow you around the country.
I know. I just praise God. It's been good. Remember, 2 years we sat home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. It's true. Everybody wants to be together, which I love.
How do you fit everything? You have two young children, 9 and
Yep.
10. How do you fit everything in your schedule to where to do the conferences, the writing the books, the book tours, the three podcasts and all that? How do you do that?
Yeah, I am super intentional with my time, but I go to bed really early, except for when I'm on Comedian Nazareth podcast. And I
I'm
wake up
sorry.
really early too. And I honestly feel like the Lord has just fueled me in this last season. I've always had tons of energy. I've always been able to light up a room in that regard. Thank you, Lord. But I didn't always use it for God's work. And I
Mhm.
really think that he's just given me the favor of understanding that when I put my hands to work and they're for him, there's multiplicity in that time. There's multiplicity in my energy. And it's pretty profound. I've never seen anything like it until I've lived it out myself, to be honest.
Now, what is your diet like? I mean, are you eating healthy? Are you one of those like
I
healthy
do.
work? uh,
Yes, I work out early in the morning. I eat really healthy. I intermittent fast. So definitely food and sleep are a huge part of that. I also attribute a lot of it to my husband, who is an amazing partner in this life, who gives me all of the push behind the lower back to say keep going, and the support in the seasons when I need to take a Sabbath rest.
So is he involved in your business, or he has his own career?
He is. He is also an entrepreneur. So he has his own HVAC company. So he's got that rolling, but he's been doing that for about 14 years. So he's definitely a mentor in the entrepreneurial space for me. And he's also involved in our nonprofit. So he does a lot in the men's ministry side of our entrepreneur.
Okay, now, what is your work? So you wake up in the morning. What time?
I wake up between 4:30 and 5:30.
And what is your schedule? What's the first
Yep.
hour look like for
The
you?
first hour is getting my mushroom coffee in while also reading the word. I'm
That's
going
legal,
through.
right?
Yeah,
Mushroom
it's
coffee.
it's totally legal and mostly watered down. It's like 1 scoop to 10 cups water, but I just love a warm cup of coffee while I am indulging in with the word. Then I go right to workout afterwards, which this is a fun workout element that was added to my repertoire about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years. God literally was like, "You're no longer going to be using your workouts for podcasting or extended education. I want you to turn on the camera." And I'm like, "No, I don't want to turn on a camera. Like, first off, I haven't even brushed my teeth yet. I have coffee breath. I don't want to be on camera at 6:30 in the morning. Who's going to be there anyway?" And he's like, "Turn on the camera and teach what I just taught you." And so I'm really good at like outlining my keynotes. I know what I'm going to say before I go up there. I, of course, let the Holy Spirit, guide that, but ultimately it's been outlined. Well, over the last 2 years, he had me start something called Pedal and Preach. And so I literally get on my Peloton and I go live from what I just dissected and just received from the Lord that morning. And it is totally unscripted, completely unplanned. It's just totally off cuff. And I've been so inspired, or he's inspired me, I guess, through his word to just, there's times I laugh, there's times I cry, there's times I'm silent. It blows my mind. And so it's been a practice of not preparing and allowing the Lord to speak through me. It's been really
Okay, so
wild.
how long? Okay, how long is that the Peloton podcast that you do, or
45
where?
minutes.
So you're on 45 minutes on the bike and you can
Yeah.
talk. I'm normally like, hi,
I
yeah,
do.
yes, yeah,
I
wait, wait.
do. I have a rule. If you're listening to me, especially if you're watching me and listening to me, you have to be moving, because that's just so awkward to listening to someone like huffing
Yeah.
and puffing if you're not also working out. That's just weird. So I encourage people, you have to be running, walking, also moving in order to dissect this and be with me. Otherwise, please pass.
So okay, so you start. So your mushroom coffee doesn't have a lot of caffeine, or does it?
It doesn't. It doesn't. No, it has lion's mane and some
Oh, I see.
ashwagandha thing. It helps with like attention, but I don't need any more caffeine. As you can tell, it's 9:30 at night,
Yeah,
and
you don't need caffeine. So,
that would be bad.
so you get up, you have your
Yep.
coffee, you have your Bible, say, quiet
Yep.
time with the Lord. You go to the gym,
Yep.
you work out, and you do the thing for an hour.
Yep.
Then what
Then my
is your?
babies wake up. My kids wake up at that point. So
Oh,
I'm
so you're
usually,
back now to home and to be a mommy.
yes, and I work out at my house, so I never actually leave.
Oh, okay, good.
Yep, yep. So by the time they come down, I am open armed and fully present and able to help make lunches and do hair and all that stuff.
That's awesome. Now, what is your diet like? What is your food like? What do you
Yeah,
eat?
so I intermittent fast until about 1 or 2. So I just have coffee, and technically coffee breaks your fast, but I don't think of it like that. So I'm just drinking water and then really whole foods. I love meat though, so I am definitely not a vegetarian. And yeah, I have got 1, sometimes 2 meals. And actually this year, Nazareth, I've been practicing fasting,
Mm.
like full fasting, more than I ever have in my life. And every first through the third of the month, the Lord asked me to start a corporate fast. And so I've been practicing fasting in a way and dissecting what is fasting in a way I never have, with the intermittent fasting that I've been doing for 8 years.
So you do 3 days straight with no food, or what? What does your
So
fast
it's
look like?
water only is the
Okay.
plan. But I found out on my second water only 3-day fast, that women specifically should not do that based on their cycle. I was
Mm.
about to faint and I couldn't figure out why I was blacking out, because I had done 7-day water fast in the past. And yeah, so I now do 1 day water and then sometimes liquid. So it's like smoothies and soups on day 2 and day 3.
Now, I heard that my friend just did a 3 day, and he said you have to have the electro water, not just
Electrolytes in your water. You can just do
electrolyte.
salt. You can just do salt is also considered the electrolyte portion.
Oh, really? Is that what it is? You just add salt? And
Yep.
Costco trying to sell it to me for $24 for a pack of 12? Are you serious?
Exactly.
That's salt. Oh,
Just salt, just Himalayan salt.
okay, now we know how you have all this
Yes.
energy. Now, what you're sharing and all that wisdom, did it come? Let me jump to one of your books, and then
Yeah.
we'll open with that. You wrote a book called Always Becoming: Sex, Shame, and Love. And I
Yeah.
wanted, I was intrigued by the word shame, because I came from a culture, and
Yeah.
if you know, the Middle Eastern culture is all about honor and shame. It's rather than the law, you always worried about stuff like, I don't want to shame my family, I don't want to be shamed by culture. So
Yeah.
what was shame? What that meant to you? What is it
Yeah,
for
I
you?
would say for a long time, I didn't even know what shame was, or that shame was holding me back from living the fullness of the life that I know that I now lead and get to lead even more so. It's really one of my missions, Nazareth, is to obliterate shame and activate purpose. And so when I think of the understanding of what shame is, I think it's the masks we carry. I think it's the titles that we wear. I think it's everything that society or trauma or the enemy has tried to blanket you to say that you're not enough. That's the worthiness conversation that a lot of people are having right now. And it's ultimately dissecting those things, uprooting them, and allowing you to live a shame-free, shameless life. Somebody asked me though, about 2 years after my book came out, Tamra, do you really think that you can obliterate shame? And no one had
Mm.
ever confronted me with that question. And I just like closed my eyes for a minute and I processed it. And I was like, I don't think without Christ you can. And I definitely don't think that on this side of heaven we'll experience it to the fullness of what we will there. But I do believe that my mission is probable and possible when we finally surrender. And surrender and shame have to be, you have to have surrender in order for you to live a shame-free life.
Now, when we talk about, there's different levels of shame. I know when you're in Christ, you're a whole new creation. Behold, all things have passed away. But I mean, we're talking, well, shame to different people means different things.
Sure.
To you, what did that mean?
It meant silence. It meant living a life out of integrity. It meant not not having the tombstone that I know that I'll one day have now. And honestly, I had a wrecking moment, and I love to reference it for people as like, if you were to die today, what would your tombstone say? And I'd come in, my kids were really little at this point. Both of them were under the age of 2. And I was working about 70-hour work weeks with 2 other entrepreneurial endeavors that I had at the time. One was a global company, one was a local brick and mortar and e-commerce. And I've always had the energy, I told you, but I didn't use it for good. And I wouldn't say that I was intentionally doing it for bad. I was just American dream status, right? I was going after the money and the fame and the cars and all that stuff. And my little girl, who was 9 months at the time, already walking because she was trying to chase down her big brother. Instead of coming to me when I got home, she turned around and walked towards my husband. And
Oh,
I had a defining moment when I chose not to run after her. I chose to go inside, and this tombstone appeared in my vision, and the Lord like really speaks to me in vision and word picture, and it said entrepreneur on it. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I don't even think Steve Jobs has entrepreneur on his podcast, right? Or on his podcast, on his tombstone. And
tombstone.
I was like processing that. And I thought, man, I honestly don't think I could put child of God for sure. I wasn't even walking in my faith to the level I am now. I definitely wouldn't be able to say good wife. And I don't think at the time I was being a really good mom. Yet those
Mm.
were desires of my heart. And so it was a quick shift in my life where I decided I had to give it up. And I call it a forced quit because I did have a choice. We all have a choice. That's what free will is. But the things that I deeply wanted were the things that were being presented to me as an option. And that was to be a good wife and to be a good mom. And entrepreneurship had to be left to the wayside. And so within a week's time frame of that, I was in a shame-filled puddle on the floor of my living room. And I had a radical encounter with Jesus. And he said 3 things to me. He said, I see you, I know you. And the part that I love the most is I still love you. Ooh, there's celebration. He said,
Oh, wow.
there
Who
are
did
balloons
that?
coming up, but I
That was
still
your
love you.
computer.
And so when
My,
he said, I still love you, I realized, wow, in the middle of my shame, I've never been still loved. Whether friends have turned away or you get punished for some regard or you decide to step out in the dark, because honestly, a lot of times in the shame, the place that you feel most comfortable is in the dark. It's with people who are willing to accept you in that space. And that's what was my story was. And so to not walk in integrity, I believe is a huge element of the enemy who just keeps you in a space of silence.
Now, what was your mom like?
Oh man, my mom's amazing. She was also an entrepreneur. It
Okay.
runs in the family, and my grandma was an entrepreneur, but worked, worked.
Mm.
Really held the household together. My dad was in the military, and so there was times he'd be deployed, for 9 months at a time, and she carried the whole household. And my nana never had enough. And literally my mom tells stories about how she would come home and if there was eggs in the fridge, she knew that she'd be okay for the next week. If there were no eggs in the fridge, she knew she wouldn't have enough and she'd probably go hungry. And so I know she did it and she worked and showed us that example of hard work and entrepreneurship with the intention of giving us more than she had. But I
Mm,
also know that that was a part of the American dream status that left me in a cycle of operation. And so even as you ask me about my schedule now, it's like my spirit like kind of fights back for the person on the other side to know that I practice rest really well. I also have a rhythm of grace connected to this operation that I have. I have a lot of people who help me. And at the end of the day, I have already told the Lord over and over again, I don't want it. Like, I don't need it. You can take it all away. I don't need any of it. I just want Him. And so when you're seeking Him first, all of the desires of your heart come to fruition. But first, it's righteousness. Seek ye
right.
first and His righteousness. And so walking out that life of shamelessness and freedom has been my protocol for the last 8 years.
That's awesome. And what is your rest like? I mean, how many hours of sleep do you get?
Yeah, 7 to 8, if not 9 on a given night. And I really do rest on the weekends. I love naps. If I can take a 20-minute power nap, man,
That's what I
you better
do.
watch out till this hour.
I know that's. I mean, that's a secret that a lot of people don't know. That 20 minutes. If you go over 25 or 30, you're tired after. But that 20, you
Yes.
got a whole. I tell my wife, I have a whole new day now. I'm ready for it. And
Totally. And I don't even
yeah.
have to set an alarm. Like I just am like, oh my gosh, I would need to wake up. And then I look at the time. I'm like, oh, it's been 16 minutes. That was the best 16 minutes. Right.
So
But honestly, Nazareth, in the past, when I was walking in these cycles of shame and living out this lifestyle of just like more and more and more, I need more and more and more. I don't even know what I needed it for. I was sleeping. I was sleeping sometimes 3 hours during the day and at night 12 hours. So I was heavily involved with gluten. I was eating so much. I would convince myself that I needed to wake up in the morning and eat 3 bowls of cereal and then go back to sleep. I in college was addicted to Tylenol PM. And so sleep was my coping mechanism. It was my way to not face reality. And so to be on the other side of that, I'm so grateful. That alone is a cycle that I was able to break.
So what how did you break? I mean, why what if okay, someone is watching. We have 102 people right now just watching live. So if you have questions for Tamara, I'm sure we can take a few minutes to answer some of them. But what took you from that 15-hour sleep to now working on having so many accomplishments? Is it just a feeling of like shame? Like I'm done with the shame? Was that the only, or there was other stuff?
Well, I took a 3-year hiatus, basically a 3-year sabbatical. I told you that my husband is also an entrepreneur, so he was able to really allow that to run the household while we were doing really deep work. I had never been to therapy before, so we did about 3 years of therapy, both maritally and individually. I did a year-long worship school and I just learned what does it mean to worship the Lord and to delight in him. And then I did a 2-year leadership and ordination and ministers licensing, where I dissected the word and I realized, man, like who am I in the identity of Christ and as a
Mm,
son and daughter, like as a daughter specifically, but those who are listening who may be sons, it was that I was none of the things that my resume were proving, and that
mm.
my resume does not matter to God. My heart matters to the Lord. And so even when people read my bio statement now, I'm like, oh, like I just want them to know that it was Jesus who radically saved me and who makes this all happen on a day-to-day basis.
Now, your first book,
Yeah.
w- what was the process like? How long it took you? What
Yeah.
did you wanted to say in it, and all that?
So I
What
was
was
sitting at one of this is when I was working out outside of the home at a women's gym, and I was with my trainer, and we were just having a heart to heart about how difficult motherhood was, and being a wife, and all of these like roles and titles that women play. And she was wondering, how have I broken free from like societal expectations of what those roles mean? And I started telling her some of the answers to the question that you're asking, ultimately around minimization. I went through a big minimization journey, meaning like literally we knocked down all the walls in our house. We have a very open floor concept. I did a materialistic challenge for fashion, and I love fashion, but we did a project 333 where I could only use 33 items of clothing for 33 days. And I just started to challenge myself. I started to challenge the status quo. I started to challenge cultural norms. And every single time I did that, Nazareth, I was so shook by the outcome, how
Mm,
drastically different it is to walk in freedom than it is to walk in that herd mentality, in that consumerism mentality, in the marketing and what's popular. I just wanted nothing to do with it. And the Holy Spirit would convict me. I mean, I think on Friday, I don't know when this is, well, this is airing live now, but when it comes out, I'll have been alcohol free for 5 years. Me and my husband,
wow.
cold turkey, just decided we want to break the generational bondage of what this means to our children. I
Right.
quit in the midst of me being a wine rep. So that's interesting. That didn't go over so
You were
well.
a wine rep?
I did so many things. I had 9 businesses before this business. So I was in it on all the ways that you could imagine. But I just had to let it go. And I encourage people, like, when you feel convicted to release something, I could no longer go to movies with my husband. We could no longer go to anything secular. We stopped going to all of the music festivals that we used to go to. And we, for 8 years, have only listened to worship music, to Christian music.
Amen.
And those seem like religious. I'm sure people are listening. They're like, well, she's such a prude. It's not that. When I just feel for our family in the season of life that we're in, that I have to do something drastically different than how I was raised and what culture is doing in order for us to find peace.
That's I mean, and that book was is it the one that
Yeah,
you
that's it. So I
that one?
shared about this journey with that particular trainer. It took me 3 years to write this book. All my other books I can do much, much faster, but this is my first memoir. And this is the deep seated traumas. This is the deep seated struggles. I shared about my sexual abuse from when I was really little that I had suppressed so much, which is a part of that aiding of sleeping and masking and shame. Um, I didn't even
Mm,
know that it had happened. It led me to a really dark area of like, what is femininity? What is my body made for? I was exposed to porn when I was really young, and then cyber sex, and then all of these things that came out of a trauma that I had suppressed to the point that I didn't remember it. And so here I am married in that fetal position that I mentioned on the floor, having this radical encounter with Jesus. And within a couple months, all of this came to light. And I had to re-fall in love with the husband that I married that I didn't really love. I just did it because it was a checkbox. I had to
mm.
re-fall in love with the little girl that was carrying this trauma for years. I had to go through some really, really deep parts of myself in order for me to stand in freedom today.
Now, Tamara, there's people listening and they will be listening that are not there yet. They're not
Yeah.
they were abused when they were children. They're holding nobody else knows that except
Yeah.
them and the predator, whatever.
Yeah.
What do you say to them?
Yeah. I've actually had the privilege of taking women on women's retreats. And I had zero idea that amount of people, like what's the stat, right? Like 1 in 4 men have been sexually abused. Well,
Wow.
I didn't know what it was for women. And I was on this retreat with 12 women from all different states, all different places. They didn't know each other. And by the end of the retreat, we found out that 12 of 12 had been sexually abused. 12 of 12.
Oh my
And
Lord.
I was carrying weights, right? Like some people were sharing things with me that they had never shared with their spouse of 20 years. There was a mother-daughter duo on one of the retreats, and they had shared their testimonies with each other that they had never heard before.
Wow.
It was wild. And so this has been a continual, perpetual conversation. And at the
Mhm.
end of the day, the one thing that I can say is that you're not alone. You weren't alone then. You're not alone now. And you're still seen, you're still known, and you're still loved. And that you can, through the process of forgiveness, through the process of repentance, through the process of self discovery and knowing who God sees you as, you can walk without those shackles and without that bondage. And some of the hardest parts is to forgive the perpetrator, to forgive what happened to you, even if you were the one who was the person who did it.
Wow. Now, are you still doing these conferences?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a part of our entire business platform. The Lord gave me about 5 years ago this idea that as I pursue entrepreneurship again with his release, that it's not about the brand and it's not about the business, that it's about the being. It's about the identity of the person. Because if we're out here building great businesses, they will fall, they will falter because they're on a soft foundation, right? We know the scripture
Right.
around build it on the sand or build it on the firm foundation. And so if we can build ourselves first and focus on that, that's where the story work comes into play. That's where these wholeness retreats come into play. That's where real self-development comes into play. And self-development, you hear the self-help industry. Truly, they're relying on self to do it, but it's ultimately finding out who is the one who created the self to begin with. And so finding your identity in the Lord will allow you to have freedom in that regard.
Now, so second book,
Yeah.
you wrote this. I think no, that's not. That's not. Is that no? There's another book that you wrote before this one, and it's called. Let's see, The Secret Struggle of a Woman's Identity. More than
Yes.
enough.
That's actually fall. That's actually coming out this fall. That's brand
Oh,
new. Yeah, we've got this one is another one. You just for those who are on, this is the Joyful Entrepreneur series,
yeah.
and we've got two. One of them just launched today, so go get your copy. But this entire series, Imagine the Chicken Soup for the Soul, is
Right.
for the entrepreneur. It's for the faith-driven entrepreneur or the person who has yet to come into their faith, but they want to live more joyfully in the pursuit of their mission, of their calling, of their purpose. And so it's been amazing to do it as a cohort with incredible authors.
Wonderful. So this book is like, several authors wrote this
It
book
is.
with you.
Yeah, it's called an anthology. It's similar to like a devotional, but it's specifically around something business oriented. So it's not a devotional.
Now, how do you go? You have a lot of bestsellers. I mean, how does that happen? If
Yeah.
people are writing books now, what is there's a secret?
There's secrets. There's always secrets. I think that's a part of our next anthology is busting the lies of the industry. But potentially for those who are listening and knowing that there are opportunities to get on the bestseller list, specifically around categorization, which might mean nothing to someone who's not yet an author. But when you become an author, they're going to ask you, what category do you want to put your book in? And there's an opportunity to put them into multiple categories, which can put you into the bestseller list easier.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Smart. So you go
Yeah. Little
international
tip.
stuff and
Yeah.
boom. That's okay.
Exactly.
So now, the entrepreneur conference. Tell me about the Founder Academy. That's
Yeah. Ooh. So Nazareth, you're going to be a part of this
yeah.
inaugural gala that's happening later this year. But the Founder Academy is connected to our nonprofit. It's called the Founder Collective. And we call ourselves a mobilized church. We actually are a 501c3 under the recognition of a church. We have weekly discipleship calls for entrepreneurs. And so every Wednesday we gather as a church body and we have real raw conversations. It's not pulpit to people, it is people to people. And so it's gathering around a table and having conversations. And when I was in that space of coming out of despair, we started a home church for about 2.5 years. And in that time frame, it was alongside an incredible pastor. We realized that we were actually cultivating leaders. And this was not a plan. It just happened to be that at the end of that 2.5 year time frame, all of these leaders were catalyzed in their own missions and their own nonprofits and their own businesses. And we realized that what we were doing there was so needed, because there are not safe places for entrepreneurs to go to just be raw and real and talk about the struggles of what it is to be a leader, to have a team, to deal with the finances and the struggle and the pain points of that. There are so many conversations that aren't happening that entrepreneurs need to have. And how do you look at it through the lens of the Lord? And so we are establishing this academy that is going to be an opportunity for people like ourselves, content creators, C-suite executives, new generation who doesn't want to, they want to boycott the educational system and all the problems hanging out over there. And they want to be ordained and operating as a faith-driven leader. And that could be as a for-profit or a nonprofit. And at the end of this 10-month cycle, they'll have an opportunity to sit in front of a shepherd tank, which will be a board of investors similar to Shark Tank, but we're going to shepherd you. We're not going to eat you and spit you up and chew on you and spit you out. And we're really going to mentor. So 100% of those who come in front of the shepherd tank will get supported in some way, shape, or form, financially and in a mentor relationship, because we think we're lacking mentorship so much as entrepreneurs. Otherwise, you have to pay 30 grand to be in someone's mastermind, and that's not the same as mentorship. So Founder Academy is meant to really catalyze ministers in the marketplace.
That is amazing. Now, is there's a size limit or a size? Yeah, like you have to have that many employees, or
No,
you're
this will be there will be a lot of startups, I imagine, and then there will be some people that are in that grow phase, looking to scale, but they haven't yet hit that caliber yet. So there will
that,
be educators like John Maxwell. There'll be educators that are pastors that have, millions of followers across platforms. And so we're bringing a compilation of educators to come in to teach and train from their lens of expertise. It's not just me speaking. It's not just one curriculum. It's a curriculum that's being built out of a multitude of curriculums.
now, how? What do you call it? So, how many of these conferences do you do a year, or you're planning on doing a year?
Yeah, we do 2 conferences a year. One right now is the Founder Con, which was one you're coming to. We're so excited. It's going to be in November in Norfolk, Virginia. And then the next one, which will actually launch next year, is an author, speaker, and a builder conference. We call our community messengers. All messengers we're all meant to be a messenger in some way, shape, or form, whether it's through dance or comedy or writing books or starting a podcast. We all have something to share. And ultimately, it's our story that's connected to his story. You might have heard it as his story or our story, his glory, right? And so
Right.
to glorify him as messengers. And so that's going to be an awesome inaugural conference next year.
So now you have 3 podcasts, right?
Yeah.
What? Tell me about the one that Girls Gone Holy. Tell us a little
Yes.
bit about that
Well,
and what.
our mutual friend, beautiful Jessica Shakir, who's been on one of your episodes in the past, we'll have to drop the link below on which episode that was. And
Yeah.
a couple of other females who are just phenomenal women of God. We got together last year. They didn't know each other. And I invited them all to a retreat. And I was like, hey, no expenses. It's like all on you. I'm not making money, but I think we need to come together. Same conversation as the founders, and actually help lift one another up in the areas of expertise that we have. And this is a real mastermind. It doesn't have to be paid for to be a mastermind. And so we came together, and after we left there, we realized the synergy and the need to have multiple voices into this realm. And so Girls Gone Holy is a place that we are dissecting the word. We're dissecting women and what is happening inside of our lives on a consistent basis. Today, we were talking about what it means to get naked well. So yeah, it sounds
I'm a
awesome, right?
comedian. Let's talk more about that.
Well, it's this concept of this idea of intimacy, nakedness, vulnerability, and cunning. Did you know that naked and cunning are the same root words? And so the cunning serpent was actually created to be cunning, and cunning can be terrible, or it can also be wise. And so getting comfortable in your intimacy and your intimate experiences and being okay being naked, that's being vulnerable, isn't it?
So you mean the serpent was naked when he asked Eve? And oh,
I'm sure he
okay.
was.
Cunning, cunning. So you mean cunning in a good sense?
Right. Right, because
And
you think we're called to be like wise serpents, right? That's literally a command. And so why would we be called wanting to be something that was actually what manipulated us in the garden? And so it's reestablishing the intent, the original intent of what that means. And it was just Satan's,
yeah.
alternative motive.
Now, in your first book, Always Becoming Sex, Shame, and Love, how did you get any backlash from pastors, leaders, conservative Christians?
Yeah, it's a little racy, right? That they don't always like that, but it's a for now conversation. And if they want to skirt around it, they're not serving their congregation well, in my opinion. And so while I don't necessarily go out and say, "Hey, let me come talk about sex, shame, and love on your at your pulpit," I do go and talk about what does it mean to always be becoming and to release things like shame, confront conversations like sex and identity, and to actually understand the greatest love you've ever known. And oftentimes, both men and women alike, because that 12 on 12 sexual trauma stat that I gave you, I hear just as often from men. And I get text messages from men often sharing, their struggles with porn or their struggles
Mm.
because of things that happened to them when they were little. And also the shame that they carry even for interactions they've had with women. And so there's addictions that need to be confronted in the church that most people aren't talking about. They're talking about drugs and alcohol, but there's sex addictions as well. And so to help people break free from that, I really realized that while it can also be really uncomfortable for me to have those conversations and to lead them, God has anointed me and my husband in that space. And there's so much freedom to be had. So it excites me, but I also have to continue to surrender my will, my pride, my ego to conversations that are meant to heal people at large.
That's amazing. I mean, nobody else is doing that, or if they're doing it, it's just not as what do you call it, as focused spiritually as this. So this is amazing. And what do you call it? Um, I have so many questions, but you mentioned something at one time. I was listening to you about you felt like Barbie. For
Oh,
Is that-
so frustrating. Yeah. Like literally, we were called Barbie and Ken, me and my husband.
Why
And
is that?
because we are both blonde haired, light eyed, tan, fit. Like we fit the mold truly. And at the time, we had a white picket fence and we were the youngest in the neighborhood. We had the youngest babies. We had a boy first and a girl second. We had
Oh,
two
perfect.
dogs. Like literally, that was our story. And yet, what was going on internally, specifically for me, but ended up coming to light for my husband as well, was like we were standing in the shadows of something that we had never even confronted. And so I know now if that's ever brought up, and sometimes it is, we just kind of laugh it off and realize, yeah, but there's nothing plastic about us anymore. We had to do the hard fleshly work, and now we have a heart that the Lord has given us, and we're grateful.
That's amazing. Okay, here where I'm going to ask you a few questions that would help people who are listening. Okay, let's and nobody's asking the question, so I'm going to ask it for them.
So.
And the question is, okay, I'm thinking of writing my story in a
Mm.
book. Where do I start?
Yeah, I have an amazing story organizer that I love to give our authors through our publishing house. But I would say outline it, write down all of the stories that you want to share, and then start organizing them. We do writers' retreats as well, which is really dynamic. I cannot write like, some people will sit down and say, oh, write 500 words every day. You
Okay.
guys, and my brain doesn't even work like that. I have got to have silence. I say silence. I like to have the ocean and
Uh-huh.
a lens. I want to be by myself. I don't want to know that my kid's going to come in and I need to pull his tooth or brush his hair. Like I can't do that. And so I really would encourage you to find the space to dissect what it is that you are meant to share and to recognize through the stories that you're going to share. How can you do that tactfully? How can you do that without hindering relationships and still being honest and not carrying shame um, as you're writing the book, but instead release the shame so it sits on a shelf. That's what I always say about my book. Like, Nobody can say, Tamra, this. I'm like, yeah, I know. You could read it too. It's in the book. I didn't hold anything back. And I did that intentionally. So I hope that
Mm.
people who are listening, you go through that process, you do the work, and you write from a place of healing and not from a place of brokenness.
Wow. Okay. If someone said, "Hey, Tammy, you have Tamra," why do I call you Tammy?
It's
You
okay. I
have
tried to change my name to Tammy in the second grade, but my mom didn't let me.
okay. This you do the podcast. If someone
Yes.
says, "I want to start a podcast," what do I do? What do
Yes,
you
they're
say to them?
amazing. Again, it's gonna be around the message. Like, what is the thing that you want to hang your hat on? Now, and also know that it's gonna evolve. That same podcast cover, the Messenger Movement podcast, was called Fit and Faith for 5 years. And FIT stands for Founders, Innovators, and Trailblazers, but we knew that there was more to it. It's the speaker, it's the author, it's the podcaster. So understand, what is your message? Who do you wanna talk to? And honestly, I say this all the time, but I haven't said it here, is how can you stack play in your day? If I look to my podcast as play, and they are, because it's just conversations like this, I'm having so much fun. I didn't have to work
Right.
to be here. Then I have a totally different demeanor to how I serve and how I share than when I come with a formal outline and I'm like, okay, now I have to do this. And oh, let me artifact check that. Like, there, you don't have to do that. In the podcasting world, there's so much leniency, and people truly just want you to be yourself. And so
Right.
I love the authenticity of how you create space in your show, because you're just like, let's go there. Let's just have a conversation. There's no agenda, you know?
Right. There's no agenda, and that's how we do our thing. What makes you cry, Tamra?
Hmm. Hmm. Thinking of my kids getting older.
How old is older?
A minute, a second, a day. I
Uh-huh.
I I want to freeze them every single year. I say, this is my favorite decade. This is my favorite year. This is my favorite season with them. And with my schedule being the way that it is, there is surely tension. I'll just say that for those who are listening. I get to experience, we have seasons where my husband would, get up in the middle of the night to go service somebody's house, or we'd be at dinner as a family and I had two little kids and he'd be like, I got to go, babe. And like, that hurt. Well, now that's the season I'm in. And I'm in the season where I'm like, oh, I'm going to miss the play because I'm going to speak over here in this state. Or, hey, I'm going to miss this because I'm going to go do this thing. And there's tension in that reality. And
Right.
also, I always have to sit with the Lord in that, because he makes me at peace. He makes me at peace to know that what I'm doing is on his behalf, but I also have a really huge responsibility as a mom. And so it is my greatest honor. It's going to be on my tombstone that she was an amazing mother, and that her children, like the Proverbs 31 women, her children and her husband, they speak of her righteously when she's out and about. And so it's the dwelling. It's the time I don't want to miss.
I relate to this a lot. I mean, being a comedian, sometimes being on tour on the tour
Yeah.
bus, or being here and there. I think the family understands. I did that. I asked my kids, and my kids are my youngest 16 now, and I asked them. I said, "Have you ever felt I wasn't around for the important stuff?" And they go, "No, you've been there. You've been there. We don't think." So sometimes we do feel guilt. That's
Yeah.
not, like the kids are like, "It's okay. Mom is busy right now, but she's going to be there tomorrow, and she's going to be there,
Yeah.
for this event. And if it's serious,
Yeah.
they know dad's going to be there." And so yeah, like this morning, I was with my daughter. She had a speech, and I told the principal, me and her mom gonna be there, and there was no
Mhm.
parents, but like we wanted to be there,
Love
and
that.
it felt good. But because I know some other, her birthday, I'm gonna be with you guys.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be flying on November 6th,
Oh, we're
which
gonna
is
make
her
her a
birthday.
birthday video from
Yeah,
stage.
so I'm gonna be flying. I think November 6th is I'm.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna have the event on November 6th, the cruise.
Yep.
So, but they understand. She's fine. She's okay with that, and
Yeah.
that's something that's important. What was can I? Okay, if you have to, like, you do the press, the house. What do you call it? The fit,
Yep.
uh,
Good press publishing
press,
house. Yep.
yeah, publishing house, you have the conferences, you have the writing books, and you have all this. If you have to scale it down to one thing, what would it be?
I turn messages into movements to glorify God.
You turn messages into movement to glorify God. Now, if you have to choose, like you can only be an author, you can be a conference speaker, you can
Don't
only
do
be a
that to me. I don't have to be that. I get to be
what
that's a
if? What would be like? Okay, this is it. This is what I would if I have to do only this. This is what
Oh
I
my
would do.
gosh. Well, if I say speaker, can I be a podcaster at the same time since I'm kind
Yeah,
of
okay.
mixing
Yeah,
up?
no, that's true. No, no.
Um, golly, I just love words so much. I would say speaking. I would say
Speaking.
speaking, podcasting, yeah. Even though I
And
love to write, I love to write.
yeah, now I know it's almost an hour, and I appreciate your
That was
time.
so
And just
fast, I
uh,
know.
is people gonna can some speakers who are watching or listening going, are you guys like an agency? You take an entrepreneur and help them with all these different levels?
We do. So our heart is to not just um, let you like, click check the box and say, "Oh, now I'm a podcaster." It's to actually make you the top 1% podcaster. How do you do that? How do you get and hit the list? How do you do that from a publishing perspective? So we're an asset-based coaching company. So we actually build the things out and you leave with tangible assets. And usually we're working with our entrepreneurs a year, sometimes 2 years, depending on what all they want to build out. But they usually leave as a top tier podcaster, a top tier speaker, and a top tier author, best-selling. And so that's something that I had to walk through. So I always say that I went ahead so that you don't have to do it and piecemeal it all together and spend all the money the way that I did and fall on your face and get taken advantage of. And we want to kit it all together. So one, it's in a plan and a blueprint that matches you. You do not follow the way that I do it. You follow the way the Lord's leading
Mhm.
you. And I think that that's really important for people to know too. And it's in his pace and timing, not ours. So if someone's like, "Hey, I want to do this, but I only want to do one element a year because I can't handle it with my schedule," so be it, you know?
Right. Now, last but not least, how can people get a hold of you either for attending? Okay, let's start with one at a time. If they want to attend the conferences, how can they get there?
Yes, you can go to thefoundercon.com, thefoundercon.com.
Okay.
You can also just go to my Instagram for all the things. Nazareth is probably the best
Okay.
because it's all there. It's linked everywhere. You can't miss it, which is just my name, Tamra, like a camera without the E. So Tamra.Andress on Instagram.
Oh, dot Andress.
Yes.
Okay, let me
Oh,
fix
yeah.
it.
Tamra.Andress. Yeah.
Andress. Okay,
There it is.
that's your I social. I okay. If they wanna hire you as a speaker for their women's event or for their
Yep,
other
all the
event,
things.
all in the same.
TamraAndress.com, all
Everything is
things
in.
Tamra. Yep, you can go to my name. I've got 3 different websites, so to send you to all of them would be bananas, but if you Google my name, you will find all the things.
Okay, how can they get the new book?
Go to Amazon or I shouldn't have said that. I'm a
No.
publisher. Go
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Barnes& and Noble. Barnes& and Noble, I just cussed on your podcast by saying that name. Go to
You
Barnes&
made
and
it to the
Noble.
best of and Barnes and Nobles. You
We were number 1 bestseller for Barnes& and Noble, which is
and was that
awesome.
a secret for that,
That's
or
not a secret. That's sell more books.
just like really good? You
No
sold a lot of.
secrets there. Just sell a lot of books. Yeah, this is a cool fun fact for those who are in the author game. It's 2,000 books is the average book amount that one author will sell in the life cycle of their book. Meaning, you're 40 years old, you die when you're 80. Only 2,000 copies is what you're ever going to sell. We sold 6,000 copies in 4 months. And that's something that we are so proud to be able to do consistently on repeat for our authors. But it's also the benefit of doing some of the cohort options that we have. So we're always having and inviting new people in. If you want to take a step into the author journey, but you don't want to do it alone or you don't have the community base for it yet, we have a lot of options for people to come in and just do it as a compilation piece.
Perfect, perfect. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know it's late for you, and if you hang on 1 second, let me close the program.
So great.
And
Loved
uh,
being with you guys today.
oh, you're so kind. Thank you. Uh, you've heard her, you've seen what she's doing, but go to the website, go to her, just Google her name and just look at everything she's doing with her team. Just amazing. I know there's something there that can help you to take you to the next level, or you feel, what, I have something. I'm sitting here. I know the Lord called me to do something. Reach out to Tamra and see what they can do with you, or attend their conference. If you're in, you can start saving money right now to come into the conference. If you're an entrepreneur, in November we're going to be in Virginia Beach. On November 7th and 8th is the conference. On November 6th, I think it's for her team, and it's going to be a cruise that I'm going to be doing comedy on. But on the conference, I'll be doing some comedy a little bit for you guys. But yeah, that would be it. So again, thank you for watching. If you benefited from this, subscribe to the podcast and let your friends know. Also, July 20th is the Laughter for All podcast, not the Laughter for All podcast, Laughter for All comedy concert, and at the La Mirada Performing Arts Center. Go to laughterforall.org and get your free tickets. Also, on September 14th, I'm going to be in Northern Sacramento, California, at the State Theater for the Laughter for All event. So, those are the laughter. All right. Love you guys. Thank you for watching, and you have a great, great evening. And God bless